Story 1. It is unsafe to have all of our military leaders in one place. Hotels could be targeted or the meeting place itself. Story 2. My guess is that Hegseth wants to remove anyone who is not personally loyal to Trump. Soldiers take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution and to obey orders. Hegseth wants to weed out people who think there may come a time when those duties conflict and they might choose the Constitution over Trump. Story 3. There are only 3 options. 1. Some bizarre, asinine action in which he is too inept to realize you should not call in all the generals. 2. A purge. 3. War is declared. Could easily be a mix of these. Those are the likely ingredients. Story 4. Wasn't it Saddam Hussein who gathered all his generals, singled out several, and had them executed? Story 5. I don't know, but having all of our military brass in one spot seems like a critical national security risk. Hopefully, they will have designated survivors hiding somewhere in case the worst happens. Story 6. It is an illegal loyalty test to see whether the leaders of our nation place Donald Trump above the Constitution. Story 7. Not just nationwide, but global. They are being pulled out of the Pacific for this. Possible explanations range from signage that should read Department of War rather than Department of Defense, to declaring war on Canada and then on to Europe, to abandoning foreign wars and directing forces to attack and hold liberal cities within the United States. These people are bats hit crazy. Anything is possible, from a nothing burger to World War III to a war on the United States. The only thing you can count on is that the reveal will not be a rational explanation that fits. If there were a real development that merited this, they would either announce it clearly or it would be so urgent they would not be waiting until next week. For context, they did not do this for the Cuban Missile Crisis, and they did not have Zoom then. Story 8. Incoming false flag operation and martial law. Hegseth is going to tell them there is some threat, and they need to get on board or they will be fired. Story 9. Regime change in Venezuela. While the United States is busy with that, China and Russia will do whatever they want. Story 10. Based on his track record, he will gather all staff in a room and give each person a paper to pledge their loyalty to Donald Trump and the Trump administration. Anyone who questions the need for the pledge or refuses to sign it will be fired and replaced by people who have signed. He will replace employees who are minorities, by race or gender, with those favored by the administration. He will require everyone to pledge on paper to follow orders from Donald Trump and the administration without question, and he will fire anyone who refuses. Finally, he will require everyone to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Those who refuse or who break the non-disclosure agreement will likely face retaliation. Story 11. My fear is that it is a loyalty test, followed by terminations for those who do not pass, all under the guise of saving money. Story 12. He has already said he plans to reduce the number of people of these ranks by 20%. There are about 800 of them now. My estimate is that around 160 will be told not to return to their posts and will be fired. It will disproportionately impact the small number of women and minorities who have attained that high rank. I would not be surprised if those who remain are told to either sign a loyalty pledge to the president or submit their resignations. This would be similar to what was done to journalists covering the Pentagon. Sign a pledge that you will not do any original reporting, only rewrite press releases and call it news, or surrender your press credentials and be banned from all United States military bases worldwide. Story 13. They are being reminded that, in the Make America Great Again movement, their loyalty should be to the President of the United States, not to the Constitution. We are toast. Story 14. Not to be alarmist, but seriously, this is nothing to joke about. The clowns running this administration cannot be trusted to support the Constitution. Whatever the reason for this meeting, it cannot be good for the country. Story 15. Trump himself said he is essentially planning a war against America. Story 16. They are planning to impose full martial law during the upcoming government shutdown. Military leaders will receive assignments once President Trump carries out mass firings of current civil service leadership. Story 17. 330 million people who will not be governed cannot be governed. It is that simple, folks. Boycott as much as you can and sit your asses down. Most of those major companies run on loans anyway. Do you see where the power is? Do not panic. We have this. Story 18. It feels like the kind of thing a tech bro hotshot CEO does to reinforce his ego and appear to be running the show, but it does not amount to much and wastes everyone's time. Story 19. This will probably benefit everyday citizens and reduce the cost of housing. Story 20. A plan for worldwide takedowns of liberal organizations that Trump has described as threats to national security. Story 21. It is called a coup. He wants them all to fall in line, to obey the regime rather than the Constitution, or be replaced by someone who will. This is so they can bury the Epstein file before Congress can approve its release. Story 22. Imagine graduating from West Point, enduring endless training, being deployed to the front lines and sending troops into harm's way, only to end up taking orders from a television host who takes orders from your commander-in-chief, who is himself a convicted felon. At what point will you not obey the orders of the President of the United States and the orders of the officers appointed over me, according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice? Story 23. So the Russians can get up to date on all military plans. Story 24. The government is shut down but plans to keep operations running despite growing pressure from all sides. I suspect he does not understand how a government shutdown works or how it affects the military's operations and assumes everyone will abandon their duties and go home, as Fox News has suggested for years when Democrats have been in power during a shutdown. Story 25. The memo said, "If you read this, you are gay. They are now being checked to make sure they are not transgender." Story 26. Stop saying mean things about me and Donnie Darko. That's an order. Story 27. My best guess is to present a tempting target for an attack. Take out anyone who disagrees with him. Story 28. He knows one of them stole the strawberries, and he's going to find out who. Story 29. I am making an uninformed guess that this is just a show of force. Trump and Hegseth are television personalities. They want to demonstrate to everyone that they have power over a room full of military personnel. Like the Kirk Memorial, it was a large display intended to show support. It is superficial and makes the cult believe they are on a winning team. It is straight out of the cult playbook. Story 30. Massive layoffs and a demand that non-Make America Great Again supporters leave their jobs. They are going to lay off a large number of people. They believe that fewer people make the system easier to control, and they want only cultists to remain. This is how authoritarian governments work. Make no mistake, talent always outperforms loyalists. By driving out foreign workers and talented individuals, and by purging the wrong citizens of the United States is seriously harming itself. Russia and China, thank you. It is interesting to watch an empire dismantle itself. Story 31. It's going to be a showdown. We'll see who supports Trump, and the rest will walk away. It may be to weigh the generals to see who actually supports the Constitution. Story 32. They are going to dismiss all career military personnel and replace them with loyalists. Story 33. He will demand loyalty oaths and fire those who refuse. Repeat with the executive officers. Story 34. Swear a personal loyalty oath to the orange child molester, or we will toss you out the window. Story 35. Under Comrade Trump's orders, he will begin removing all generals not aligned with Make America Great Again. Once that is completed, we will be in serious trouble. Be prepared for the fight of our lives. Story 36. Either they are going to be ambushed or World War III is about to begin. Story 37. They need a distraction of enormous proportions because of this. Story 38. I'm willing to bet money on a military purge. Anyone not willing to kiss the ring will be thrown out. Story 39. How to apply makeup like a pro for top-notch communications. A hands-on seminar. Story 40. The dickbag will probably call for a loyalty oath to the Cheeto-in-chief and lay the groundwork for a coup. Story 41. A rather late rapture? I would personally find an excuse not to attend. Story 42. Who knows, but they will all walk away thinking, what the fuck? This guy is a moron. Story 43. An interesting thing to wonder is whether there are any women or people of color left in those positions. So, did they receive orders to report? Story 44. I suspect several employees will be retired and processed out at the main office. That would be the most likely reason to bring everyone back. The rest will probably receive a stern lecture about following policies and processes implemented by corporate headquarters, but that have reportedly been slow-walked or ignored. I doubt it will be a happy meeting. Story 45. They plan to remove generals who would defend the Constitution rather than the president, keeping the president far from the troops to reduce the chance of a coup. In preparation for operations in Democratic cities, Portland appears to be on Trump's mind, so they may start there. This is exactly what appears in the Project 2025 plan, which is publicly available and has been followed with minimal resistance despite public awareness of their likely actions and timing. Story 46. Whatever it is, there's not a damn thing any of us can do about it. Welcome to hell. Story 47. Loyalty oath or Saddam Hussein-style public callouts. Walkouts of senior leaders they know are not loyal to the regime. And quite possibly it is just Hegseth following orders from Donald Trump that originated with Vladimir Putin to do something idiotic, like drawing all of your most senior military leadership to Washington, D.C., creating a massive security risk domestically and internationally. Story 48. This all feels like the opening to Designated Survivor. That one guy they left behind in Guam is now in charge. Story 49. I think the start will be some type of loyalty test. Then it will be us pulling out of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the United Nations. Story 50. 50-50. It is something dumb as fuck that could have been an email and is going to make us all miserable. Story 51. He wants to separate the loyalists from the constitutional oath keepers. Recall of military leaders to Quantico. Story 52. They are going to be asked to sign a Trump loyalty pledge, and if they do not, they will be fired. I know because that is what Hitler did. They are not even changing the wording, for fuck's sake. Story 53. We are invading Venezuela and taking all the natural resources they have, and probably Mexico too. They will claim they are going after the cartels. Story 54. Given the combination of incompetence and malice in the current administration, it could be anything from a purge to Hegseth accidentally hitting reply all on an email. Story 55. Getting ready to implement martial law once the government closes. Story 56. I've seen the movie The Usual Suspects. This meeting will be where the 2027 coup plotters, minding their own business, are dragged into the same room for a meeting that could have been an email. They share skeptical glances during a speech by the man in charge, and finally realize the laws that had been restraining them were optional the whole time. Story 57. The Epstein files will ruin Trump and his administration. His only move left is to launch a coup and arrest Democrats. Story 58. Whatever the specific purpose may be, the general purpose will be to take further steps to turn the United States into a fascist police state. Story 59. I am willing to bet $50 that it is a purity test intended to sift out anyone remaining who still has enough of a conscience to prevent their next major infringement on people's rights. Story 60. To demand fealty for the impending murder of United States citizens. Story 61. The number of conspiracy theorists here is truly baffling. Story 62. Anyone seen Star Trek Into Darkness? All the brass are assembled and then gunned down by John Harrison, also known as Khan. Hegseth is expendable. Look what the radical left did. I don't know. All of a sudden, the unreasonable is considered normal. Story 63. We will probably not know much because the only news network allowed to report on the Pentagon is One American News Network. Story 64. I would attend the meeting only if I was certain Donald Trump would be there. It would be far too dangerous for the senior leadership to be gathered without him. Drones are everywhere. Story 65. I think this meeting, if it is even real, is a response to Russia's recent escalations and is meant to send a message that the United States of America is serious. Story 66. I wouldn't be surprised if it's literally nothing more than an effort to make people nervous and kick up smoke. Not that this administration isn't monstrous, but I have a feeling it's one of those we're the biggest and the best parties that generate a lot of sound bites that amount to very little, and we talk about how foolish it was for a week or two. Story 67. Given the timing, this appears linked to the Kirk shooting, the pending shutdown, or developments in Ukraine. Feels abrupt. Story 68. Trump likes that Zelensky cannot have elections during a war, so he will replicate this before the 2026 midterm elections. An internal war with a false flag is probable. Story 69. Something tells me that President Trump designating the anti-fascist movement as a terrorist organization is somehow relevant to this recent development. Story 70. It looks like a good day for car problems. I would not trust either the President or the Secretary of Defense to gather all military supporters in one room. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. Story 71. Wild speculation. He will likely demand that they swear allegiance to Trump or be purged. Trump knows his poll numbers are low and that he and the Republican Party are losing, so he may try to overthrow the government. Story 72. It would be pretty amazing if they all went in and came out without Hegseth and his cronies. They all shrug and say they don't know what happened to him. Story 73. The president was disappointed in his parade, and we are here to watch better parades. We are declaring martial law. Loyalty or else. Story 74. All the generals have my permission to cross their fingers. Story 75. Fascist dictators enforce loyalty oaths or carry out purges to ensure a subservient military. Story 76. Probably related to getting people to forget about the Epstein files. Story 77. Donald Trump strikes me as the type who would love nothing more than a war fought for him. You do not rebrand as the Department of War without intending to start one. I also think that before his term is up, he will be itching to use a nuclear weapon. He would be the kind of person who might want the world to end if he cannot remain in power, and I do not believe for a moment he would care if everyone he ever loved burned with it. Story 78. I bet it is to make the military swear loyalty to the current president as he decides it is time to discard the Constitution and run for a third term, the length of which would be much longer than 3 years. This is to ensure the military's loyalty as much as possible. Story 79. Apparently this includes every 07 and above, that is, brigadier generals and rear admirals lower half, plus their senior enlisted counterparts, sergeants major, master chief petty officers, and command chief master sergeants. This is not a war. A war would involve theater command structures and potentially deployed divisions, air wings, and fleets. It would not surprise me at all if they were all ordered to swear and sign a loyalty oath immediately or be dismissed. Story 80. Either it's a purge or, given how Russia is becoming increasingly belligerent and aggressive, it is part of global planning for World War III. Story 81. What could go wrong by gathering all United States military dignitaries in the same place at the same time? Story 82. Putin asked to make a spreadsheet of all the top officers. Story 83. Someone added me to the Signal chat for this. They are planning a Smash Brothers tournament. Story 84. Removal from command and the installation of Christian nationalist psychopaths. China is going to have to save the world from the United States of America. Story 85. Did something happen that Trump needs people distracted from? Story 86. Loyalty test. Swear personal allegiance to Trump, or else purge. Story 87. Loyalty check to see who is willing to do incredibly bad things at Trump's command. Story 88. My tinfoil hat theory is that the meeting itself is unimportant, but pulling generals away from specific tasks is the goal. Story 89. If he's forcing a loyalty pledge, this may be the beginning of the end for this administration. I believe the end of this authoritarian regime will come from within. Story 90. They must either support Donald Trump without question or be fired. Story 91. 70% chance it is Hegseth being a drunk idiot who sent a reply all-style meeting and is too embarrassed to back out. 29% chance it is just another photo op event to help Trump and Hegseth look like they are working hard and have the support of the military. 1% chance it is a very sinister meeting where Hegseth intends to finalize weeding out officers who are loyal to the Constitution and not the dictator. Story 92. He is lining up support for a possible coup, which could occur as early as after the midterms if the Republican Party loses the House and Trump cannot use those spineless traitors to rubber stamp his agenda. Story 93. You know, the type of manager who calls team meetings even though everybody already knows what to do. It is to boost the manager's ego and justify their existence. Story 94. The plan, likely operationalizing Project 2025, would fire many generals and admirals, tighten White House control over the military, and pressure senior officers for loyalty. Troops would be shifted toward domestic and border duties, while the Pentagon bureaucracy would be stripped back so decisions come directly from the top. In short, there would be fewer independent voices, more political control, and a military reshaped for use at home. Story 95. I'm sorry, I can't help produce or edit potentially defamatory statements about a real person. Neutral text-to-speech ready alternative. Allegations have been made that Donald Trump engaged in sexual misconduct, and some claim he has used the military against the United States. Story 96. There may be a government shutdown soon. Trump doesn't want the military to stop conducting his shows of force even though personnel will not be paid. They call a meeting to ensure everyone is loyal to the would-be king, reducing concerns about troop morale. Story 97. On August 2, 1934, the same day President Hindenburg died, Hitler had the military swear a new oath. This immediately followed his consolidation of power by merging the offices of president and chancellor. The oath required unconditional obedience to Hitler personally, not to the state or the Constitution. The text stated, "I swear by God this sacred oath that to the leader of the German Empire and its people, Adolf Hitler, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, I shall render unconditional obedience, and that as a brave soldier I shall at all times be prepared to give my life for this oath." This established a clear precedent. Story 98. Loyalty test. Canning those who do not kiss the Cheeto ring. Story 99. Opinion from someone right of center. Knowing this administration's obsession with setting the narrative, it could mean many things. Downsizing, a command restructure, which could be dangerous, new policy regarding recent events in China, India, and Russia, or an effort to investigate left-of-center active-duty personnel. That's nearly 40% of active-duty forces. They have made statements about wanting to remove anyone perceived as left-wing from the military. Having hundreds of command staff in an emergent meeting could indicate many things. This does not happen unless there truly is an emergency. My thoughts. Congress may have enough votes to force the release of a large amount of information related to the president, including unredacted files. Hegseth knows this is nearing the end for Trump, Bannon, Vance, and others. They understand the impact unredacted files would have, and it is causing a major storm in the White House right now. It could be related to finding loyalty in order to use the military in a coup. Republicans in Congress have condoned these policies for the last 8 months, and everyone is finally noticing. Make America Great Again is imploding after a recent memorial that felt very reminiscent of Goebbels' speeches from 1930s Germany. Even deeply religious people are noticing the speeches, rhetoric, hate, and dictator-like rhetoric. More tariffs on medicine and household goods are coming, and people are getting angry. This administration is one of the most unpopular not just in the United States but around the world. North Atlantic Treaty Organization leaders have recognized this, and at the recent United Nations meetings leaders spoke out against the president. Even people in Germany have issued warnings regarding President Trump. I think this could be an effort to secure loyalty to the president so they can impose martial law. And no, it is not a conspiracy. The president, the vice president, Stephen Bannon, Peter Navarro, and others adhere to the unitary executive theory, which, in short, asserts absolute power. This has been evident for years. Story 100. Hopefully among those generals and admirals there are a few who remember that their oath is to the Constitution and the country, not to an individual. Story 101. Announce reduction in force and make commanders sign a loyalty oath to Trump. Lay off anyone who does not bend the knee. Lay off anyone of the wrong skin color. Then increase the military budget to deal with all the problems this will create. Finally, funnel parts of the military budget to pet projects outside the military and award no-bid contracts to close supporters. Story 102. The National Defense Strategy is due for release. This document, along with the recently released Defense Planning Guidance, outlines operational and resourcing priorities for the department. I suspect this forum is related to that. It is probably a way to directly engage senior leaders and ensure a clear understanding of the guidance for the force. Story 103. A culling of general officers who won't bend the knee to the orange dictator. Story 104. Even communications over extremely sensitive top secret and sensitive compartmented information encrypted facilities are still subject to recording and archiving. It is very hard to ensure there are no off-screen witnesses, hard to ensure no paper notes are being taken, and hard to ensure no one is recording on their phones. I think the reason for bringing them all in person is so they can screen everyone and ensure there are no means of recording the meeting. That makes me quite certain that whatever will be discussed would have criminal liability implications if it ever came to light. And let us be clear, this will not be a small operation. Moving major command leaders and various component commanders will involve hundreds of aircraft and thousands of people. As a retired Army officer myself, I assure you that 3- and 4-star generals are not just flitting around. This will be a highly coordinated operation across several continents. Not unlike a president or an ambassador, a 4-star general travels with a security detail and significant communications resources at all times. This operation has significant costs, easily tens of millions of dollars, and significant risks, so whatever reckless plan Hegseth has in mind, it will be something profoundly significant to our defense posture, or he would not be doing it. Story 105. Wow. These comments are legitimately insane. Scary how out of touch with reality you are. This will be of no consequence to any of us. If they declare war on Canada, which one of you proposed that, laughing my ass off? I promise to delete my account and never post here again. Story 106. Hegseth is giving military leaders a heads up about current affairs. Kool-Aid is served along with the mandatory kissing of the ring. Story 107. To swear allegiance to Trump and his administration instead of America and the Constitution. Story 108. The obvious answer is that they are planning a large operation to round up citizens who might be slightly to the left of the John Birch Society and want to ensure the officer corps will not refuse illegal orders. That said, calling a meeting of all the generals is an astonishingly stupid way to do that. If this is really the precursor of an attempt by Whiskey Pete to get the military to enforce Temi Mussolini's takeover of the country, it is not a way to ensure operational security. Calling a worldwide meeting and telling everyone we are going to institute martial law, and you are either with us or against us, is the sort of plan that would only be hatched by a Secretary of Defense who has a drinking problem and was only a weekend warrior who only got the job because he was a host on Fox News. Oh shit. Story 109. 2 issues. Overstaffing in the upper ranks, that is, too many generals, and failure to follow orders related to policy, staffing, and the continuation of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Story 110. I bet he was drunk when the invitation went out, and he has no idea why he sent it. Story 111. A meeting to discuss outreach in large democratic cities in the United States. Story 112. He will require that everyone pledge fealty to their Lord and Savior, Donald Trump. Those who refuse will be fired on the spot. Story 113. Do not freak out. There are enough stable senior military leaders who would never support a takeover. But it did cross my mind. Isn't that by itself insane? Story 114. Based on what we have observed from this administration, it will likely be an insignificant photo opportunity for the Secretary of War to pretend he did something. Story 115. I do not know, but I doubt it is good. I am guessing it will not be a dry event. We will just have to wait for updates from Signal. Story 116. He is going to fire those who do not pass a loyalty test. Story 117. A wartime presidency is a bid for power. Why else call out Putin? Story 118. Leave the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Go to war with Russia and China. Whether that is with others is up for discussion. Story 119. Word on the grapevine is about loyalty interviews. I hope those flag officers remember their oaths of office. Story 120. Layoffs. Pete has long said we have too many generals and not enough leaders. Story 121. Stop the Epstein files from being released. Start a war. Story 122. A test to see how many will keep their oaths versus consuming the orange mushroom. Story 123. I don't know what it means, but I hope they have the courage to disobey illegal orders that are likely to come in the near future. Story 124. It is idiotic to have all senior officers of the armed forces in one place at the same time. Story 125. Most likely it is meant to get everyone speculating about what is happening as a distraction. Why would you gather the country's military leaders in one place and then broadcast it on the news, letting the rest of the world and our enemies know their exact location? Story 126. He will tell officers and enlisted personnel the new loyalty requirements. Any criticism of Trump will be grounds for removal. There has to be a purge before the coup. Story 127. They are going to identify loyalists and those whom they feel could foment a coup. Story 128. This was probably something that could have been covered in an email. Story 129. Denmark. Story 130. I thought I saw that he was going to cut the top brass numbers by 20%. Story 131. He has to check which people are women and which are members of minority groups. Story 132. Get everybody in one place so that he can blow up the place and kill everyone to make sure there is nobody to oppose Lord Trump. I'm joking. I think. I hope. Story 133. He is going to make them all sign declarations of loyalty to God King Orange. They are all going to tell him to go fuck himself. Story 134. Hegseth just needed an excuse to have a meeting with an open bar. Story 135. If we are talking worst-case scenario, I think an attempt to use the military to seize control of liberal cities is more likely than an international war. Story 136. You cannot bend the knee and kiss the ring over Zoom. The entire purpose of the spectacle is to weed out the disloyal and select the sycophants to replace them. The final group will be Trump's props to use whenever and wherever he feels the need to threaten anyone in his way. Always remember, if you have to ask why Trump is doing something, the answer is his ego. Story 137. Big game of hide and seek. I hear the winner gets their choice of satellite country to rule over when the real fascist plan gets underway. Story 138. It is going to be a purge of leaders who are not sufficiently loyal or who will not pledge themselves to Trump directly. Story 139. Aliens are coming. They have made contact. We cannot notify everyone by electronic messages for an unknown reason. Authorities will be ordered to stand down and take no action. Other countries will respond militarily. We will appear peaceful. The aliens love us. The end. Story 140. 100 generals will be supporters of Trump, and they will dismantle the military. Everyone not loyal to Trump will be asked to leave. The United States is finished as a country. Story 141. New uniform rollout with a black and red theme. Shiny boots and a new emblem. Either that or they get to drink some Kool-Aid. Story 142. The Democratic National Committee declared a terrorist organization, creating a war that will eliminate all of the administration's political rivals. Story 143. Declaring civil war to take the focus off the Epstein files if I had to guess. Guessing is all I can do because I really do not know. But given Trump's call for violence against the left and the indictment of a political opponent, what else can I think? I hope I am wrong. Story 144. I think this administration likes to toy with the left by making strange moves to provoke suspicion, then ultimately showing that it is connected to the most mundane explanations. Story 145. They were to bring white out and a permanent marker. They are changing all the letterhead, whiting out defense and writing war. Story 146. He is doing a roll call to make sure everyone has been added to the correct signal chat. Story 147. Gathering these officers where they can speak discreetly among themselves may not be a smart move for this administration. Story 148. This might be a purge similar to the public purge conducted by Saddam Hussein. Story 149. It is a power play and he may fire people. Do not worry. That is what they want us to do. The people have the power. Story 150. Either launch a war against Venezuela or determine who is opposed to turning on the American people so those officers can be purged. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.